I stand frozen in the hallway, my hand still gripping the brass doorknob, as Marcus's words slice through the thin wall between us. Emily, sweetheart, you have to understand. Your mother isn't equipped to handle what's coming. It's better this way. My name is Jordan, and until this moment, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I was wrong. Our daughter's response comes as a whisper, but the tremor in her voice carries straight to my chest. Dad, I don't think... Trust me on this, Marcus cuts her off, using that velvet-smooth tone he reserves for closing deals and winning arguments. Helen's already made the arrangements. Everything's going to work out perfectly. My mother-in-law's name hits me like a slap. Of course she's involved. Helen's been orchestrating family disasters since before I married her precious son. The difference is, this time, they're including my 16-year-old daughter in whatever scheme they're plotting. I should burst through that door. Demand answers. Scream until the carefully arranged photos on our hallway walls shake loose and shatter. Instead, I force myself to breathe slowly, counting each inhale like I used to count contractions when Emily was born. 1, 2, 3. What about the party next weekend? Emily asks, her voice stronger now. Won't people notice if... That's exactly why the timing is perfect, Marcus says. No one will question it. Your grandmother's thought of everything. I ease the doorknob back, letting it click softly into place. My fingers leave sweaty prints on the brass. 20 years of marriage, and I never thought to question why Marcus insisted on solid oak doors throughout our house. Now I wonder, how many conversations have I missed? The anniversary party they're discussing was supposed to be a surprise. I found the invitation draft in Helen's precise handwriting last week, tucked between the pages of her day planner when she accidentally left it at our house. 20 years of marriage, apparently worth celebrating only as a smokescreen for whatever they're planning. My phone buzzes in my pocket, a text from Marcus. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I stare at the message, at the little blue bubble containing yet another lie. He's downstairs in his home office, plotting with our daughter against me. The realization settles in my stomach like broken glass. Emily's footsteps approach the door. I slip into the guest bathroom, closing the door with barely a sound. She passes by, humming that same nervous tune she used to sing before math tests. When I'm sure she's gone, I lean against the marble counter and study my reflection. The woman staring back looks exactly the same as she did this morning. Same shoulder-length brown hair, same green eyes, same tiny wrinkle between her brows. But everything has changed. My wedding ring catches the light, and I twist it absently. The inscription inside reads, "Forever yours." Marcus had it engraved himself, proud of the romantic gesture. Now I wonder if he was laughing even then, knowing how easily forever could be undone. The house creaks and settles around me. Familiar sounds that suddenly feel threatening. Somewhere downstairs, my husband is making plans to destroy me. My daughter is caught in the middle. And Helen, dear, manipulative Helen, is pulling strings I can't even see yet. I pull out my phone again and open my banking app. The joint account balance stares back at me, a number that could disappear as quickly as Marcus's loyalty. My separate account, the one I opened after Helen's last helpful suggestion about family finances, holds enough to give me options. Not comfortable ones, but options nonetheless. Marcus's voice drifts up from below, followed by the sound of his office door opening. He's heading to the kitchen, probably for his evening scotch. Right on schedule, because if there's one thing my husband values, it's routine. I straighten my shoulders and check my reflection one last time. The woman in the mirror isn't crying. She isn't broken. She's calculating, and that's exactly what I need to be. Whatever they're planning, they've forgotten one crucial detail. I've spent 20 years studying their patterns, learning their tells, watching them manipulate others. I've been the perfect wife, the understanding mother, the dutiful daughter-in-law. It's time they learned what else I can be. The invitation to Helen's house arrives 3 days later, hand-delivered by Emily with a forced smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Grandmother wants us all there for Sunday brunch. She says it's important. I study the heavy cream cardstock, embossed with Helen's signature flourishes. Everything about it screams trap, from the formal wording to the specific request that Marcus drive us there separately due to his early morning meeting. Did she mention who else would be attending? I ask, keeping my voice light as I watch Emily fidget with her phone. Just family. Emily's thumbs dance across her screen, but I notice she keeps glancing at me from the corner of her eye. And maybe some friend of Dad's from work. I think her name is Nora. The name drops between us like a stone in still water. I've heard whispers about Nora from the other corporate wives. Always perfectly dressed, unusually close to my husband's department, surprisingly single at 35. How thoughtful of Helen to include Marcus's colleagues, I say, sliding the invitation into my purse. You know how she loves to expand the family circle. Emily's phone slips from her hands, clattering onto the kitchen counter. As she reaches for it, I catch a glimpse of a text message. Everything's set for Sunday. Don't forget your part. Dad. I should go finish my homework, Emily mumbles, but I catch her arm gently. Sweetheart, you know you can tell me anything, right? Anything at all. For a moment, something flickers in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? But then she pulls away. I know, Mom. Everything's fine. I watch her retreat upstairs, her footsteps heavy with secrets. The house feels different now, like every room holds whispers I can't quite hear. I pull out my laptop and start searching for Nora Sullivan, Marcus's new project manager. Her LinkedIn profile is a masterpiece of corporate ambition. Her Instagram, carefully curated to project success and sophistication. But it's her Facebook that makes my hands shake. A photo from 2 months ago, at a charity gala I couldn't attend because Helen had insisted I help her with a garden party. Marcus stands in the background, his hand resting just a fraction too low on Nora's back. The front door opens, and Marcus calls out his usual greeting. I close the laptop as he enters the kitchen, straightening his tie with that familiar gesture that used to make my heart skip. Helen's invited us to brunch, I say, watching his reflection in the window above the sink. Oh? His voice is perfectly neutral, but his fingers pause on his tie. Sunday, I assume? She's invited Nora Sullivan too. Your new project manager? The silence stretches for 3 heartbeats before he responds. Helen's always networking. You know how she is. I turn to face him, leaning against the counter. Actually, I've been thinking about networks lately. Connections. Patterns. I gesture to the wine rack where an unopened bottle of his favorite scotch sits. Would you like a drink while we discuss it? Marcus's smile doesn't waver, but something shifts in his eyes. Rain check? I have calls to make before dinner. He retreats to his office, leaving me alone with the evening shadows stretching across our kitchen floor. I pull out my phone and send a text to my old college roommate, now a private investigator. Remember when you said you owed me a favor? Upstairs, I hear Emily's door open and close, followed by the murmur of her voice, probably updating Helen or Marcus about our conversation. My daughter, the reluctant spy in her own home. I pour myself a glass of wine and start making dinner, playing the role of oblivious wife one last time. Sunday is 4 days away. By then, I'll know exactly what they're planning. And more importantly, I'll be ready with plans of my own. The chicken sizzles in the pan as I add herbs and spices with precise measurements. Helen taught me this recipe years ago, along with an unintended lesson. The perfect blend of ingredients can mask almost any bitter taste. I wonder if she remembers that conversation as she orchestrates her latest family recipe for disaster. I smile, adding just a touch more pepper to the sauce. Let them think they're the only ones who know how to prepare a Sunday surprise. Sunday arrives with the weight of an executioner's axe. I park my car at the end of Helen's circular driveway, noting Marcus's BMW already present, along with an unfamiliar silver Audi. Nora's, no doubt. The front door opens before I reach it. Helen stands there in pearls and perfect posture, her smile sharp as broken glass. Darling, you're late. Traffic, I lie, watching her eyes narrow at my casual outfit, jeans and a sweater instead of her expected Sunday best. Emily arrived with Marcus? Hours ago. We've been having such a lovely chat about her future. I follow Helen through her mansion, past photographs chronicling Marcus's life. My presence in these frames diminishes over the years until I disappear entirely in the newest editions. The message couldn't be clearer if she'd painted it on the walls. Voices drift from her sunroom. Marcus's low laugh, Emily's forced giggle, and a woman's musical response that makes my skin crawl. I pause at the doorway, taking in the scene. Marcus and Nora seated close together on the antique love seat, Emily perched uncomfortably on an ottoman, all three bent over what appears to be legal documents. "Mom!" Emily jumps up, knocking over her orange juice. The liquid spreads across what I recognize as power of attorney papers. "Oh dear!" Helen tuts, but I catch the flash of satisfaction in her eyes. "Emily, help me fetch some towels." "I've got it," I say, moving toward the spill, but Marcus intervenes. "Emily, go with your grandmother." His tone brooks no argument. Our daughter hesitates, then follows Helen from the room, leaving me with my husband and his mistress. Nora rises gracefully, extending her hand. "We finally meet. I've heard so much about you." I ignore her hand, focusing instead on the papers Marcus is hastily gathering. "Power of attorney? That's an interesting choice for Sunday brunch reading." "It's not what you think," Marcus starts, but I cut him off. "Really? Because I think you're planning to have me declared mentally unfit. I think Helen's been documenting my erratic behavior for months, and I think—" I pull out my phone, displaying the email I received last night from my PI friend. "That Nora here has experience with this exact scenario at her last two companies." The color drains from Nora's face. Marcus stands, moving between us. "Jordan, you're proving our point. These paranoid accusations, save it." I toss a USB drive onto the coffee table. That contains everything. The offshore account you opened last month, the apartment lease in Nora's name, even Helen's carefully crafted diary of my supposed instability. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate once I overheard you and Emily? "You've been spying on us?" Marcus's voice rises, but I hear the tremor of fear beneath his anger. "I learned from the best." I turn to Nora. "Did he tell you about his first wife? The one before me? Helen helped him destroy her too. It's their favorite mother-son bonding activity." Nora's perfectly manicured hands clutch her purse tighter. "Marcus said he'd never been married before you." "Check the drive. There's a marriage certificate from 1999. Helen probably burned all the photos, but paperwork leaves traces." Footsteps approach, Helen and Emily returning. I grab the USB drive before Marcus can reach it. "One copy of many. Touch me, try to discredit me, or come near Emily, and everything goes public. Your choice." Helen enters, arms full of towels, but stops short at the tension in the room. "Is everything all right?" "Perfect," I say, watching Marcus's jaw clench. "Emily, grab your things. We're leaving." "She's not going anywhere," Helen snaps, but Emily's already moving toward me. "Actually, grandmother, I am." Emily pulls out her phone, displaying the screen. "I've been recording everything. Every meeting, every plan, every time you and Dad talked about framing Mom. I won't let you destroy her like you did Dad's first wife." The towels drop from Helen's arms. Marcus sinks back onto the love seat, head in his hands. Nora edges toward the door, her illusions of a perfect future crumbling visibly. I place my hand on Emily's shoulder, feeling her trembling beneath her brave facade. "We'll be in touch through our lawyers. Oh, and Helen, you might want to cancel that anniversary party. I don't think we have much to celebrate anymore." We walk out together, mother and daughter, leaving behind the ruins of carefully laid plans and the sounds of Helen's rage echoing through her perfect home. In the car, Emily finally breaks down, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have told you sooner." I squeeze her hand, my heart swelling with pride and pain. You told me when it mattered most. That's what counts. The lawyer's office feels too small for the weight of what Emily's showing me. Her hands shake as she pulls up video after video on her phone. Conversations between Marcus and Helen, whispered plans in the kitchen, late-night meetings with Nora where they discussed my deteriorating mental state. I started recording everything after I heard them talking about mom number one, Emily says, her voice barely above a whisper. The way they discussed her, like she was just an inconvenience they'd handled. I watch Helen's face on the tiny screen, her perfectly lined lips forming words that turn my blood to ice. Marcus, darling, it worked perfectly last time. Jordan's even easier. She has actual anxiety medication we can use against her. The prescription bottles in my bathroom cabinet suddenly feel like loaded guns pointed at my head. I'd started taking them after Helen suggested I was struggling with empty nest syndrome when Emily started high school. There's more, Emily says, swiping to another video. This one shows Marcus in his home office, speaking to someone on speakerphone about offshore accounts and asset transfers. They've been moving money for months. Grandmother called it preventative measures. Our lawyer, Sarah Chen, takes rapid notes. The recordings are admissible, single-party consent state, but Marcus will claim Emily was coerced. I have texts too. Emily pulls up message threads. Dad thought I was helping them. He told me everything, thinking I was on their side. My throat tightens. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Emily's face crumples. Because at first I believed them. They said you were sick, that you needed help. Grandmother showed me articles about children who ignored the signs of their parents' mental illness. She made it sound like we were saving you. The betrayal stings, but beneath it, I recognize Helen's expert manipulation. She'd nearly convinced me I was unstable too, until I overheard that conversation. Sarah's phone buzzes, a text from her paralegal. Her expression shifts as she reads it. Marcus just filed for emergency custody of Emily, citing parental alienation and psychological manipulation by Jordan. What? Emily's phone clatters to the desk. He can't. He can try, Sarah says grimly. And Helen submitted a sworn statement about witnessing disturbing behavior from Jordan over the past year. My hands curl into fists. They're moving faster than we expected. Because of this. Sarah turns her laptop toward us, displaying a news article. The headline makes my stomach lurch. Tech CEO's wife found dead after mental health struggle. 20 years later, questions remain. Mom number one, Emily whispers. Catherine Mills, I read. Cause of death. Apparent suicide during a mental health crisis. No investigation. The article is dated yesterday. Helen's warning shot, Sarah says. She's reminding you what happened to the last wife who caused problems. Emily grabs my arm. Mom, I have one more recording, from last week. I didn't want to show you because... She pulls up the video with trembling fingers. Marcus and Helen appear, but it's Nora's voice that cuts through the room. Catherine didn't kill herself. We all know that. And if Jordan pushes too hard... The video ends with Helen's cold laugh. Sarah's already reaching for her phone. I'm calling in some favors at the DA's office. This changes everything. I stare at Emily's phone, at the frozen image of my husband calmly discussing his first wife's death. They're not just trying to discredit me. They're warning me to back off or... Mom. Emily's voice cracks. What do we do? I think of the prescription bottles, carefully counted and documented by Helen. The offshore accounts in Marcus's name. The power of attorney papers, ready to declare me incompetent. They've built their cage piece by piece, expecting me to walk right in. Sarah, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. How quickly can you get a judge to hear these recordings? By tomorrow morning. But Jordan, it's risky. If we move too fast. Catherine Mills waited too long. I pull Emily close, feeling her heartbeat race against my side. We're not making the same mistake. The office feels different now, not too small, but like a launching pad. Helen taught me years ago that the perfect recipe needs precise timing. I check my watch, counting down the hours until Marcus realizes his daughter isn't just recording their conversations. She's broadcasting them directly to our lawyers. Let them think they're the hunters. They forgot predators can become prey. The emergency custody hearing feels like a trap closing in. I sit ramrod straight as Marcus's lawyer paints me as an unstable mother, wielding Helen's carefully documented concerns like weapons. Emily's hand trembles in mine under the table as Marcus testifies about my paranoid behavior and dangerous instability. Then Sarah stands, and everything shifts. Your Honor, before we continue, I'd like to play something for the court. She connects Emily's phone to the courtroom speakers. Marcus's voice fills the room, discussing Catherine Mills's death with Helen and Nora. The color drains from Marcus's face. Helen, sitting in the gallery, clutches her pearls so tightly I expect them to snap. But it's Nora's reaction that catches my attention. She's already reaching for her purse, edging toward the door. Additionally, Sarah continues, we have evidence of financial fraud, conspiracy to commit medical fraud, and potential involvement in the death of Catherine Mills 20 years ago. The judge's gavel cracks like thunder. Chambers, now! As the lawyers follow the judge, Detective Rivera, my college roommate's contact, slips into the courtroom. She makes eye contact with me, then moves to block the exit Nora was eyeing. Helen leans forward, her whisper sharp as a blade. You stupid girl. You have no idea what you've started. I turn to face her fully. Actually, Helen, I learned from the best. You taught me everything about playing the long game, remember? Mom, Emily whispers urgently. Grandmother's texting someone. I catch Detective Rivera's eye again and nod slightly. She moves toward Helen just as the courtroom doors burst open. 2 more detectives enter, heading straight for Marcus. What is this? Marcus stands, his lawyer mask cracking. You can't... Marcus Sullivan, Detective Rivera reads from her phone. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, financial crimes, and in connection with the death of Catherine Mills. The courtroom erupts. Helen launches into a performance of maternal distress that would win her an Oscar. Nora makes a break for the side door, but doesn't make it 3 steps before she's detained. And Marcus, my husband of 20 years, stares at me with such raw hatred that I finally see him clearly for the first time. Emily, he snarls, how could you do this to your own father? Our daughter stands, her voice stronger than I've ever heard it. How could you do this to Mom? To Catherine? To any of us? As they lead Marcus away, Helen suddenly changes tactics. Jordan, dear, surely we can discuss this. Think of the family name, the scandal. Think of Emily's future. I am thinking of Emily's future. I pull out my phone, displaying the screen. I'm also thinking about the recording I made last week, when you visited my house to check on my mental health. The one where you admitted everything about Catherine, thinking the medication you'd slipped into my tea had already taken effect. Helen's perfectly composed facade cracks. Behind her, Detective Rivera steps closer, handcuffs ready. You were supposed to be an easy target, Helen spits. Just like Catherine. Just take the pills, sign the papers, disappear quietly. Instead, I learned from watching you. I finish for her. Every manipulation, every careful plan, every detail documented. You taught me well, Helen. Too well. As they lead Helen away, Emily collapses into my arms, sobbing. The courtroom slowly empties around us, leaving behind the debris of our former life. Marcus's abandoned briefcase, Helen's dropped phone, Nora's designer scarf. Sarah returns, looking grim but satisfied. The judge has granted you full emergency custody. But Jordan, this is just the beginning. The investigation into Catherine's death will be brutal. They'll dig through everything. Let them dig. I stroke Emily's hair, feeling her tears soak through my blouse. We have nothing left to hide. The media's already outside, Sarah warns. This will be everywhere by tonight. I think of Catherine Mills, whose story was buried under carefully constructed lies. Of the life Marcus and Helen tried to steal from me. Of Emily, who was brave enough to expose it all. Good, I say, helping Emily to her feet. Let's give them something worth reporting. We walked toward the courtroom doors, toward the flashing cameras and shouted questions waiting outside. The truth is a weapon, I've learned. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply letting it be heard. The prison visiting room smells like desperation and cheap coffee. Marcus sits across from me, orange jumpsuit replacing his tailored suits, but his smile is unchanged. That same calculated charm that once made me feel special. You've made quite a mess of things, he says, as if we're discussing a spilled drink rather than destroyed lives. Helen's lawyer says she's willing to recant her statement about Catherine. We could still fix this, Jordan. I slide Catherine's autopsy photos across the table. Detective Rivera got them unsealed yesterday. Like you fixed this? His smile doesn't waver, but his fingers twitch. Accidents happen. People get confused, take too many pills. Catherine was unstable. Like I was becoming unstable? I keep my voice steady, though my heart pounds. Those anxiety medications Helen kept pushing, they found the same ones in Catherine's system. You're making dangerous accusations. He leans forward, dropping his voice. Think about Emily's future, her father in prison, her grandmother facing charges. It'll follow her forever. The door behind me opens. I don't need to turn to know it's Nora. I requested this meeting time specifically. Marcus's face shifts subtly as she sits beside me. Hello, darling, she says. And for once, her perfect poise is gone. Surprise. Marcus's mask cracks. What are you doing? Telling the truth. Nora pulls out a USB drive. About Catherine. About the other women before Jordan. About everything. You don't know anything, Marcus snaps, but I see the fear now. I know Helen kept records, Nora says. Insurance, she called it. Against the day you might turn on her. I found them when she asked me to retrieve some papers from her safe. My phone buzzes. A text from Sarah. Helen talking. Deal in works. Stand firm. But Marcus isn't finished. He turns to me, eyes suddenly soft. Jordan, think about what you're doing. Emily needs her father. You've made your point. Emily needs the truth. I cut him off. She deserves to know who her father really is. Then tell her how her mother destroyed our family out of paranoid delusions. His voice rises. Tell her how you manipulated her into betraying me. Actually, Nora interrupts. I already told her about Ashley. The name hits Marcus like a physical blow. I watch confusion cross his face, then understanding, then rage. Ashley? I ask, though I suspect I know. The woman between Catherine and you, Nora explains, never taking her eyes off Marcus. She disappeared before the wedding. Helen said she had a nervous breakdown, moved abroad. Sound familiar? Marcus lunges across the table. I jerk back, but he's not reaching for me. He's grabbing for Nora's USB drive. Guards rush in as Nora scrambles away. In the chaos, Marcus manages to whisper in my ear, check Emily's water bottle. Helen always believes in backup plans. My blood turns to ice. I run from the visiting room, ignoring the shouts behind me. My phone's already at my ear as I sprint to my car. Emily? My voice shakes. Where are you? At practice. Mom, what's wrong? Don't drink anything Helen gave you. Nothing from your water bottle, nothing at all. I'm coming to get you. Mom, I already... Emily's voice slurs slightly. I feel kind of weird. Stay where you are. I'm breaking speed limits, running red lights. Get your coach. Call an ambulance. My phone buzzes with another text from Sarah. Helen confessed to everything. Taking deal now. Too late. It's all too late. Helen's final revenge, using my own daughter against me, just like she used Catherine's death to control Marcus. The perfect recipe for destruction, served cold and calculated. I hear Emily's coach shouting in the background, the sound of something falling. "Mom," Emily whispers. "I'm scared." "Stay with me, baby. I'm almost there." Tears blur my vision as I race through traffic. "Just stay with me." The sound of sirens fills the air. Ahead of me, heading toward the school. I pray they'll reach her in time. All my careful plans, all the evidence gathered, all the justice nearly served, and Helen still found a way to take what matters most. The ultimate revenge wasn't against Marcus or Helen. It was against me, for daring to expose their secrets. And Emily's paying the price. The hospital corridor stretches endlessly before me as I run alongside Emily's gurney. Her hand feels cold in mine, her breathing shallow. Behind us, I hear Detective Rivera questioning Helen, who arrived at the school moments after the ambulance. "It was just tea," Helen protests, her voice carrying that perfect note of grandmotherly concern. "How could I have known?" Emily's fingers twitch in mine. Her eyes flutter open, unfocused but fighting. "Mom, the recording." "Save your strength," I whisper, but she shakes her head weakly. "Phone? Today's recording." The doctors push through double doors, forcing me to let go. As they wheel Emily away, I pull out her phone with trembling hands. There's a new audio file from this morning, time-stamped just before practice. Helen's voice fills my earbuds. "Here, darling, I brought your favorite tea. We should talk about your mother, what she's doing to this family." Emily's response is clear, strong. "Actually, grandmother, let's talk about what you did to Ashley." A pause, then Helen's sharp intake of breath. "What did you say?" "I found her, you know, living in Montreal. She told me everything, how you poisoned her slowly, made everyone think she was crazy. Just like Catherine. Just like you're trying to do to Mom." "Emily, dear, you're confused." "No, I'm not. That's why I didn't drink the tea. I poured it into my water bottle instead. The one I gave to the police 10 minutes ago." The recording ends. I look up to find Detective Rivera watching me, her expression grim. "Helen didn't know," she says quietly. "Emily outsmarted her, but Helen had already poisoned the water bottle earlier." My legs give out, and I slide down the wall. She was always one step ahead. "Not anymore." Rivera holds up her phone. "Emily sent copies of everything to my office this morning, including chemical analysis of all her previous tea parties with Helen. She's been collecting evidence for months." The emergency room doors burst open. Marcus appears, somehow out on bail, with Nora close behind clutching a familiar-looking journal. "Where is she?" Marcus demands. "What has my mother done?" "The same thing she did to Catherine," Nora says, holding up the journal. "Helen's private records, every poison, every plan, every victim, including the ones we didn't know about." Helen's voice cuts through the chaos. "You ungrateful children. Everything I did was for this family." She stands at the end of the corridor, handcuffs glinting on her wrists, flanked by officers. Her perfect facade has cracked, revealing something dark and ancient beneath. "Family?" Marcus advances toward her. "You killed my first wife, drove away Ashley, tried to destroy Jordan, and now Emily. I made you strong." Helen's voice rises. "Each time you chose weakness, I saved you. Catherine was beneath you. Ashley would have ruined everything. And Jordan was the only one who saw through you." Emily's voice comes weakly from behind us. She stands in the doorway, supported by a nurse, pale but alive. The doctors had caught the poison in time, thanks to her preparation, thanks to her courage to face Helen alone. "You taught me about family loyalty, grandmother," Emily continues. "About protecting what matters. So that's what I did. I protected my real family, My mom. Helen lunges forward, but the officers hold her back. Her carefully constructed world crumbles visibly, years of manipulation and control dissolving in the harsh hospital lights. Take her, Detective Rivera orders. As they lead Helen away, she turns back one last time. You'll never prove anything, she hisses. I protected this family for 40 years. You have nothing. Emily steps forward, stronger now. We have everything, grandmother. Every tea party, every special recipe, every conversation. I learned from you too, how to keep records, how to gather evidence, how to play the long game. The elevator doors close on Helen's face, twisted with rage and disbelief. Marcus slumps against the wall, the weight of decades of manipulation finally visible on his features. Nora quietly hands the journal to Detective Rivera and walks away, her part in this story finished. Emily falls into my arms, exhausted but triumphant. I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything, she whispers. I had to make her believe she was winning. I hold my daughter close, feeling her heart beat strongly against mine. You did more than that, baby. You broke the cycle. You ended her game. Around us, the hospital hums with life and second chances. Sometimes, I realize, the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in surviving them, in refusing to become what they wanted you to be. The box arrives on the day of Helen's sentencing. No return address, just my name in her precise handwriting. Inside, beneath layers of tissue paper, lies a leather-bound journal and a single envelope. Emily watches from across the kitchen as I open the letter. Should we call Detective Rivera? No. I unfold the paper, recognizing Helen's signature stationery. This is her final move. Let's see what it is. The letter is brief. Jordan, you won as I knew you might. This journal belongs to Marcus's grandmother. Read it carefully. Some patterns run deeper than blood. Helen. The journal's pages are brittle with age, filled with familiar observations. A wife who asked too many questions. A daughter-in-law who threatened the family's stability. Recipes for special teas. Careful notes about symptoms and timing. She wasn't the first, I murmur, turning pages. She learned it from her mother-in-law, just like she tried to teach Marcus. Emily takes the journal, her hands steady. A legacy of poison. The doorbell rings. Marcus stands outside, looking older than his 40 years. Prison and revelations have stripped away his polish, leaving something raw beneath. The sentencing is in an hour, he says as we let him in. I thought I needed to tell you both something first. Emily moves closer to me, protective. I notice she positions herself between Marcus and the kitchen, between her father and any source of drinks or food. Some lessons leave permanent marks. I found Ashley, Marcus continues. She's willing to testify about what Mother did to her, about what I let happen. It's too late for the sentencing, I point out. I know. This isn't about reducing Mother's sentence. It's about finally telling the truth. All of it. He glances at the journal in Emily's hands. I see she sent it to you. Did you know? About your grandmother? I suspected. Mother used to talk about her with such admiration. He runs a hand through his graying hair. I thought it was just stories. Until Catherine. Until I saw how easy it was to look away, to accept the explanations, to become part of the pattern. Emily places the journal on the table between us, a family history written in careful doses and calculated silences. Why tell us now? Because you broke the pattern. Marcus looks at our daughter with something like awe. You saw the truth and chose differently. Better than I ever did. My phone buzzes. Sarah reminding us about the sentencing. As we gather our things, Marcus touches the journal one last time. What will you do with it? I think of Catherine, of Ashley, of all the women in that ancient journal. Detective Rivera should have it. Let their stories be heard. At the courthouse, Helen stands straight-backed and proud as the judge delivers her sentence. Life without parole, not just for Catherine's death, but for decades of calculated destruction. She doesn't look at us once. The media swarms outside, hungry for headlines about the socialite turned serial poisoner. Emily handles them with surprising grace, speaking about breaking cycles of abuse and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. Later, at home, Emily finds me studying the journal one last time before turning it over to Rivera. "You never told me," she says softly. "What was in the tea she gave you? The one you pretended to drink?" "Nothing." I close the journal. "She was testing me, seeing if I trusted her. Every poison started with trust." Emily sits beside me, her head on my shoulder like when she was small. "Do you think we'll ever understand why she did it? Why any of them did?" Through the window, I watch the sun set on our changed world. Somewhere, Catherine's family is finally getting answers. Ashley is speaking her truth. And Helen sits in a cell, her carefully constructed legacy dismantled by the very lessons she taught too well. "Understanding isn't always the point," I tell Emily. "Sometimes surviving is enough. Sometimes breaking the pattern matters more than knowing why it started." We sit together in the growing darkness, mother and daughter, writing a new chapter in an old story. Not all poison leaves visible traces, and not all antidotes come in bottles. Sometimes the cure is simply choosing to see clearly, to speak truthfully, to love fiercely enough to change the ending.